My name is Liza Gundowry. I'm Miss World Mauritius, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Hello everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project with you. My special guest for tonight is Liza Gundowry, who is Miss World Mauritius. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you very much for having me. Hi, everyone.
How are you? How's life going?
Good. As you know, life is very busy. I mean, I was just speaking to you about the fact that I work full time as well as juggling Miss World preparations. Currently, we're at a stage now where Miss World dates have been announced and confirmed. It's still a question mark. I'm not going to say it's confirmed until I'm probably on the plane going there, but it looks like it's happening this November to December. So just currently trying to finish off a lot of my work so that I can spend as much time as possible closer to the date preparing for the competition. But yeah, apart from juggling all of those things, doing really well. Yeah.
I mean, I would say don't jinx it because we've been waiting a very long time for dates
Right.
and even
Yeah.
a final country. I think you're the first, well, no, I know you're the first Miss World contestant that I've interviewed since the actual date and country have been announced. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're aware earlier on we were thinking it was going to be in April or May in
In
the UAE.
Dubai, right, as well.
And then that just kind of disappeared. And then suddenly I saw an announcement, oh, it's in India in November, December. And last time I checked, I don't think India was in the UAE. Not that anything against India, but it did seem a bit different. So how does it feel now that we, fingers crossed, how does it feel now that we
Mm.
actually have a time, a date, and a location?
It's a relief. I think I'm not the only Miss World delegate who has been, I guess. Oh, sorry, that was my screen that just
There
folded
you go.
back. Okay. Yeah, I'm not the only Miss World delegate that's kind of been um, putting my life or plans on pause until finding out when it would be. And it's got to the stage now where all of my friends, all of my family, their lives are now put on hold for Miss World. And everyone's kind of like, the big question of the year, I guess, has been when is Miss World going to be? So it's a relief for myself and for my network and for anyone supporting me who wants to attend or wants to help in any way. Um, and I'm really excited, but also there's a lot of work to do.
I think the first question is where's the balance? So I mean, you do get the date, so you have something to work towards, which I always think is a good thing. I think
Yeah.
it's very difficult to work towards a goal when you have no timeline. Um, so then you get excited, obviously, but you say there's a lot of work to do. So where's the balance at the moment? Is it equal parts excitement and slightly stressed, or is it tending one way or the other?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. Because I've been waiting, I guess, 1 year, 1.5 years, I could say, for the competition. It got to a point where I tried to focus a little bit more on my career because it's also really difficult to be in that competition mode for like 1.5 years. I think it's just
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
impossible to keep that momentum going. Um, so now I've got to a point where I feel like I can let go of work a little bit. I think I'm going to try to do that maybe from August onwards, focus a lot more on the competition. So I don't think there's going to be a balance. I'm going to try to do it as well as possible, but I think it's just going to be a little bit tough to handle until the competition, but it's something that I want to do and it's going to be worth it.
Do you want to tell the audience watching at home what you do for work?
Yes, so I'm a senior education consultant and a studies facilitator. Senior education consultant, I I advise students going to university, specifically Cambridge and Oxford. So I specialize in applications for those universities. Obviously, they're very hard universities to get into. So my job is to make the application process as accessible as possible. And then once at Oxford, because that's where I studied, I'm a studies facilitator for students with learning disabilities, difficulties, I guess. so that they can navigate their studies at Oxford, because obviously the course is not adapted for everyone.
Mm.
And I guess I'm the middleman between the university and students who are struggling to follow, be it because of ADHD or dyslexia or just anything that they have. My job is to learn how they work and adapt their course to the way that they learn.
It's so fascinating you say that. Firstly, because it strikes me that when you say Oxford, that's like ultra level of the elite universities. Everyone knows what
I
Oxford is.
know, right?
And then to hear that there might be students who got in who were struggling with learning disabilities there, but then also equally because I just spoke to a person who has ADHD. And after having a 5 hour conversation with her and my life experience, I'm feeling like I might have to go and get some sort of help myself because I think I might have it as well. But I
Yeah,
was someone who was very naturally intelligent, so I sort of muddled my way through. But I'm just curious from your experience. I'd be fascinated to hear, in particular, dealing with children who have ADHD or dyslexia. How can you help them adapt to the course so that they can make it through successfully?
right. So I mean, sometimes, and also it's really fascinating to for those people to get into Oxford and Cambridge in the first place. So they're
Mm,
very they're very, very intelligent and they're very committed. It's just that, the course, and I've been there myself. I did my master's at Oxford, so I know how it is. And I know that they don't wait for anyone, right? So if
mm,
you've got some kind of issue in understanding something, I then have to step in. They'll record what they are struggling with in class, for example, and I have access to the entire course. So I'll go back and watch their lectures, write their notes for them sometimes, or explain it to them in a way they can understand better, which is a huge
mhm.
challenge for me because a lot of the times I haven't studied their course. So I basically have to go and learn their course. And you say children, but they're like, a lot of them are older than me because they're doing master
Yeah.
studies. They're like in their 30s. I'm 26. It was 24 when I started this job. So a lot of my students were older than me. Um, and so if they struggled with something specific with the course, I'll help them with that. We'll have a one-on-one chat and we'll go over what they don't understand. And maybe perhaps I can step in. Sometimes, of course, like there'll be something that I don't understand, but it's a
Mm,
lot easier for me to go and find that information and to um, go and read articles and to kind of like put two and two together in that way that might take them, they'll be able to do it, but it might take them a bit longer. So it's really adapted to each student. Some people have ear dyslexia, so it's about their
mm.
hearing. Some have cerebral palsy, so it's about being able to focus in class and things like that. So it's really just a one-on-one adapted, um, I guess, help that I am able to provide.
I mean, it sounds fascinating, but it also sounds incredibly intensive because I'm imagining for each person, it has to be different, right? Because if they're in a different course with a different learning disability, as you already said, you basically have to learn
Yeah.
someone else's. I mean, at this point, it sounds like you have a bachelor's in everything.
Literally, that's how it is. That is how it is. I mean, I've got one bachelor's and one master's, but I feel as if I've got like multiple masters and bachelors. But I'm not complaining because I am an academic person at heart. I love studying, I love learning. So that aspect of university I do miss it. So I feel like I'm being paid to do another master's. You know what I mean? So it's like a win-win situation. But when you say studies facilitator or even like education consultant, I think
Mm,
a lot of people don't really understand what goes on behind it. They just think like you're a TA or a teaching assistant or whatever.
mm,
But it is so intensive. And a lot of my friends, even my family, they don't understand. They're like, why are you not done with your work yet? And I'm like, I can't, like, I until the student is understanding it and until they've done their exams, like my job is doesn't stop as much as much information as I can possibly get for them. Um, I I can't. I have to. So it is quite intense. It is intense, and I think it's not known about. Like I didn't know about
mm.
this job before having it, and it can be quite like the workload is definitely underestimated. Even I would go as far as saying by those who like assign the jobs to
Yeah.
study assistants.
Yeah, I've never heard about this position before, Lisa. I'm glad to hear that it exists. Don't
Yeah,
get me wrong. I don't
amazing.
think it existed in my university when I was there, but it's nice to hear that some people aren't being left behind. What are some of the weirdest courses or things that you found yourself learning? I mean, you sound like you've had to learn all sorts of things. So what
Yeah,
are some of the
luckily
things you found yourself having to study that you never thought that you'd be
I
studying?
mean, luckily they do it by department, so I will never be
Okay.
put on like a chemistry course because I just probably wouldn't be very good, wouldn't be of much help. I've done some like coding lessons as well for
Okay.
students doing global governance and diplomacy. They have to learn how to code on that. So it's gone as far as that, but I would say a lot of the courses are within, I mean, I did international relations and African studies and, political sciences and things like that. So I have jurisprudence. That's quite hard because I never studied law.
Mm,
I did a couple of law internships here and there, but I'm now having to go and learn, like Article 13B of like the Treaty of Europe, for example, like just crazy things like
yeah.
that. But it's really good knowledge, and it's definitely things that will serve me later on because I want to go into the field that I've studied, which is international relations. So it's like, learning
Mm.
philosophy won't hurt, or jurisprudence won't hurt, or, like any other ones that I have. It definitely feels like useful information that I'll need later on.
You're going to be the most well-rounded person in the world. It sounds like you'd be the perfect dinner guest, no matter what the topic of
Can you
conversation.
imagine?
It sounds like you'd have something to say, right?
Yeah, and I think it's gonna like, I mean, I hope for things like Miss World, it's very important to be up to
Mm.
date on, national news and international news as well. So I think I just take as much, and I like learning, as I said. So literally, it's just difficult, but apart from the difficulty of the job, it's so enjoyable, and it's things that I'll be able to reuse in future conversations and to get a bigger idea of things that are going on in the world. So yeah.
Can I ask you what you think perhaps the secret to learning is, or the secret to teaching is? Because I did a lot of coaching and tutoring as my first job out of university, and I loved it. But I
Yeah.
found that one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is it's one thing to have someone who has the knowledge. That doesn't necessarily make them a good teacher. I think all of us
Yes.
have had school experiences with someone who's obviously very intelligent and, no shame to the sciences because I was one, but chemistry, physics, and I went to aeronautical engineering. And I remember sitting in a maths lecture where we were discussing n-dimensional calculus. And I just had a very fundamental question, which was I thought we only had 3 dimensions, or four if you include time. So why would I need to know about n-dimensional calculus? And I couldn't
Right.
figure that out. So in your mind, what's the secret to being a good teacher?
I know I seem like the best candidate to ask the question to, but genuinely, I don't think I'm an amazing teacher. I think it's more I'm good at assisting because I love learning. And I guess the secret to learning, which is what you asked as well, would
Hmm.
be to just genuinely love it. Because I see a lot of people and they don't like learning, right? So I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I don't have any advice for you. Like, you just have to find something that you like, and I think I guess that goes for everything ever, right? The secret to anything is to like it, and that way you can learn to know more about it like that. I, as a person, I don't have a lot of patience, which comes as a surprise with considering the job that I have.
Yeah.
It's something that definitely the job has helped me to work on, but it also helps that it's Oxford students who are able to understand at a very fast rate anyway.
Yeah.
So
That's
as
true.
long as you're teaching them it in a way that they can understand, they will they will not struggle to understand like specific concepts. Um, but yeah, I never grew up wanting to be a teacher for that reason because I was always that person in class who would understand things really quickly and then kind of like, just tap my foot, like waiting for everyone to understand it and be like, guys, it makes so much sense. But that's not the way to teach, obviously. But yeah, I just say to learn at least is to love it, and to teach within your capacity, which is what I do. So I teach Oxford students because I know I can teach those kinds of students. I wouldn't say I'm adapted to teaching all different kinds of students.
Well, it's certainly a certain spectrum of students. I would
Yeah.
assume getting into Oxford, if it's anything like the more prestigious universities over here, you get there and it's a big deal and there's quite a lot at stake. So it's not like you can just sort of coast through and nothing happens.
Yeah.
But I'd be fascinated to hear, because you sound more academic than most of the pageant contestants I've interviewed. And I say that having interviewed hundreds and hundreds of them.
Yeah.
So then what on earth got you interested in pageants?
Right.
Yeah.
Good question. Very good question. I never grew up wanting to do pageants, and I'll be so honest about that. It's not like a dream that I've had since I was little. I didn't even know about Miss World a couple of years ago. And I have always been academic, and I've always wanted to go into international relations, conflict resolution.
Mm,
That was always my goal. In 2020, after my bachelor's and just before my master's, I went back to Mauritius from studying in London, and I did an internship at a radio station in Mauritius. And I just started. It was January of 2020. It was a
oh,
cyclone
right.
day, so there was a
Okay.
cyclone in Mauritius. I was wearing like a big black t-shirt, camo pants, like no makeup, hair tied up. I got in at lunchtime or like later than usual because there was no transport from where I was living to the office. I got in late, like really dripping wet. My cousin gave me a lift, I think, in his break or something. And as soon as I get into the office, one of the journalists, I was an intern at the time, so one of the journalists is heading out, and she's like, "Lisa, come with me." Of course, being an intern, I'm like, "Okay, let me go with her.
Sure.
Sounds
Yeah.
good." Like, I'm an intern. I'm looking for work, and she's like, "We're going to go to the Miss World press conference. This is in Mauritius."
Mhm.
Me like, okay, well, one, I don't know Miss World. I didn't know who the Miss World was at the time. I was not dressed to go to any kind of conference, let alone a Miss World conference. But I was like already making my way inside the van. She was getting me my microphone. It's just like, I don't know if journalism. It's just a big fat rush in the morning, and everyone just heads out quickly. And in the car, they're like, "Yes, it's a Miss World conference. There's a cameraman. There's people with us going to this conference." And I had no idea about anything. Miss Universe, Miss World, you could have told me, like, you could have said anything to me.
Anything.
I just had
Yeah.
no clue. And I get there, and the Miss World at the time is Tony Ann Singh. So I get there, it's a panel, Tony Ann Singh, Julia Morley, didn't know who she was at the time. And just seeing all these people, our Minister of Tourism, our Miss Mauritius at the time, National Director of
Mhm.
etc. And me being the naive, I think I was around 21 or 22, probably 21, 22 at the time, no idea. And it was in English. So in Mauritius, we speak French.
Mhm.
So for once, press conferences in English. I'm happy, I'm comfortable, and I'm asking so many questions because of my genuine curiosity and I guess ability to speak English above for other people who might have been there asking questions.
Sure.
And so I'm just asking questions and saying, like, "So what does this Miss World do? What is the point of this thing?" Completely oblivious to who this person was who I was asking the question to, Julia Morley. It's a very funny story. So yeah, so I'm just doing that. And afterwards, I'm speaking to Tony Ann Singh, one-on-one, interviewing her now. And she looks at me and she's like, "You're very pretty. You should do Miss World." Like, out of the blue. Just because we're just talking, right? So like about
Mhm.
her projects or about her win of her crowning. I kind of don't remember now. She's like, "You're so pretty, you're so smart, you should do Miss World." And I'm thinking like, oh, that's really sweet of her. She's just being a typical Miss World, like, you know, complimenting me. And I'm like, "Oh, you're really pretty too." Yeah, like, just general chit chat, not really
Mhm.
understanding anything. And then after my interview with her, she goes to grab Julie Morley, and who comes over and they start talking to me because at this point I had spoken to Tony Ann Singh about a little bit about me as well. I told her that I was going to Oxford to study this, and I was really passionate about Mauritius and making a change in the African continent, and that I was going to study African studies. So like genuinely not lying or, trying to
Mm.
inflate or what I
Sure.
wanted to do, I guess sparked an interest there, with Julie Morley kind of saying, you should do this. We have this initiative called Beauty with a Purpose. My first ever time hearing about this initiative.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You'd sound like a really good candidate for Mauritius." Puts me in touch with the national director in Mauritius, who was there
Mhm.
as well, but I didn't know who that was, or I didn't
Mhm.
know anything. Um, and yeah, I was then put in touch with my national director, current national director. But this was in 2020, so we didn't have a contest in that year because of COVID.
Yeah.
Completely forgot about it. Went back to Oxford to do my master's degree. Came no, Went back to Oxford to do my master's degree. Early 2021, get an email from the Miss Mauritius organization to explain, hey, we couldn't have the contest last year, but if you'd still be interested, this is like a call out to everyone who wants to apply this year.
Sure.
And my master's was 1 year, so I was like, okay, sure, I don't have a plan after my master's. I'll apply. Applied, got accepted, and suddenly I'm appearing in a press conference in Mauritius. I'm not in Mauritius at this time. I'm in Oxford. No, I was in Paris, like for my holidays. I'm in the gym receiving this news, but I'm been announced as a candidate in a press conference in Mauritius, and I stopped my workout and I'm just watching this live. And I call my mum and I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to Mauritius to do the contest of Miss Mauritius. So yeah, it's very it happened by chance, completely by chance. Didn't expect to win either. I was like, I'll be back, guys. And 2 years later, I was still in Mauritius, now carrying out my reign as the person who had won the contest.
I-
Yeah.
I- So, do you know any more about pageants now than you did at that press conference?
Wow. Yes, I can't believe that. Honestly, sometimes I forget that I came from that to who I am today. But yeah, of course, because when you get interested in it and you're looking even to design a gown for the Miss Mauritius
Yeah.
final, you're then having to go online and research winning gowns and looking at
Mm.
previous competitions and then following candidates from your country but internationally as well to get some ideas, to get inspiration. So I would say now I'm a lot more knowledgeable about it, thankfully. But it's still something that I'm having to teach myself because it's not something that I had within me. So, all the
Sure.
preliminaries at Miss World, I'm having to go and now research what this is because before that, I
Mm.
had never watched a single Miss World
Mhm.
show. I have now, but I had to go and learn what each preliminary and what everything was
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you and me both. I think when I first got into this, I certainly asked some quite embarrassing questions now that I look back on it. I certainly didn't study pageantry
Right.
in university, but I'm curious, because when you said that you were announced as a candidate, you said they called a press conference. Now, that's more than what happens in Australia. In Australia, we don't get to call a press conference. There's not that level of interest. So, what's the general level of interest in pageantry in Mauritius?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we have a huge interest in pageantry. A lot of people don't know who I am and who the Miss Mauritius is. It's not a big thing. It is aired on television,
Hmm.
and we only have one channel, so you are
Oh,
kind of
okay.
forced to watch it
You
if
can't
you're
not watch it.
yeah if you happen to be watching TV at that specific time and watching the local one channel, then you just have to watch it. But yeah, it is really interesting about the press conference. I've never thought about that. Um, it's not a big thing, but I guess with it's pretty girls, right? So it's going to be interesting to a lot of people, even if they don't understand what pageantry is.
Yeah.
It'll be like, watching who's going to represent our country and things like that. They'd be interested at least at that level. But I would say we have a long way to go in the interest of pageantry.
Well, I mean, compared to some other countries, I mean, we're probably never ever going to catch up. I mean, I'm sure you'll see if you're not already aware, if you're not already aware through your research, once you get there and you meet up with countries such as India, the Philippines, Venezuela, they're on a different level.
Yeah,
Everyone knows who
right.
their representatives are, and it can be quite intimidating if you're not prepared for it. But tell me now that we have a date and we have a host country, and you're going to represent your country. And interestingly, my godparents are actually from Mauritius.
Oh
Funnily enough,
wow.
I
Okay.
speak a tiny bit of French, but it's like
Mm.
school French. You know, the one where you learn words but you can't speak it, like bonjour, ça va, and that's about
Okay.
all I can remember.
Nice. We
Um,
do have a big community of Mauritians in Australia. Um, I
that
mean, in
might explain it.
Sydney, and I don't know where you're based
Yeah,
exactly.
Sydney.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
then yeah, we have. Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't so far.
It always struck me they're very, and maybe we can talk about this, but they're a very kind people. I think that's what struck me first. I mean, you can talk about kindness in general, but
Yeah,
the Mauritians struck me as very kind,
yeah,
very humble, very family
yes.
oriented. Would that be accurate?
You've hit the nail on the head, exactly. Yeah, and I was actually filling out my Miss World form over the
Mm,
weekend, and one of the questions was describe your country, and describing Mauritius, you could describe the beaches or the views
mm,
or all the hikes that you can do and the waters and the boats. But I think, I mean, apart from being so culturally diverse, which I'm sure you probably know about Mauritius, it's one of the things we're known for. But I was saying the thing that makes me feel at home and makes me proud to be from Mauritius. Yes, it's a great holiday destination, but it's also the warmth of the people.
mm.
No favor is too big to ask a Mauritian person, and I see that in myself and in my family. Because I
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, oh wow, Mauritian people are really kind, but then if I look even around myself and with myself, um, it's true. Like if I can go the extra mile to do something for you, why
Yeah.
not? And that's just the motto, I guess, that we operate with. Um, and it's even shocking when I go to other countries where that isn't like the norm. And I've definitely
Yeah.
struggled. I've definitely struggled with that in the past because in Mauritius you can ask a stranger for something, and as long as
Mm.
they can do it, they will do it. And yeah, I don't know where that comes from, but I like that it's, I guess, a character trait of ours.
So were you born in Mauritius and then you went over to the UK for university?
Yes, so I was born in Mauritius. I actually went over to the UK when I was much younger, at
Hmm.
8, and then was back and forth between Mauritius and the UK. Obviously, when it got to university studies, there's no question about it. Like
Yeah.
I went to London University, I went to UCL for my bachelor's, and then went back to Mauritius 2019, 2020. Got into Oxford, so I went back to Oxford, and then after Oxford, I've been back to Mauritius. Currently, I'm in London for work, but I'll be going back to Mauritius again. So yeah, I guess I spend my life between the two countries, and I love it that way. I'm very privileged to have two places that I feel comfortable in enough to consider home.
Can you compare and contrast the two countries? I've never been to Mauritius. I spent a deal of time in the UK, but it just
Okay.
strikes me that, when we're describing warm, well, let's say a warm climate at least, and the London certainly is not warm. And most people wouldn't describe the British as warm and welcoming. It's a little bit frigid. I mean, that's a stereotype.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, you've lived it. So can you compare and contrast the two countries? I imagine they got to be quite different in some
So
ways.
different, so different. And even like currently there's a heat wave in Europe and it's so cold in London. And there's been jokes going around, like, was this part of the Brexit deal that we just didn't get to experience the
Really?
heat wave? It's just, yeah, the weather, I mean, weather-wise, there's a huge difference, of course. Um, in Mauritius, it's winter now, but it's warmer than it is in London, which is
In summer.
summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
and in terms of the people, yeah, there is a huge difference. Oh. In Mauritius, we're a lot warmer and kind. I'm just trying to see how I could split them because I've never had to do this exercise before. So in Mauritius, it's a lot warmer, friendlier, and I guess kinder. But with that
Mm,
comes uh, not as much of a structure, which when you've lived in England, you get to become accustomed to. So
yeah.
here, things are how they should be. You tell me
Mm,
something, we'll do that, and you'll be on time for your appointment, and you'll queue up for it, and all of
right.
this structured and kind of like diplomatic way of being.
Yeah.
Um, and in
The
Mauritius, we lack.
predictable way of dealing.
Yeah,
It
and in
sounds like
Mauritius, we lack
it's
that.
does Mauritius work on island time? Because I remember, and I mean, don't mean island as, near the UK. I mean like island as in an island. Because when I was in Hawaii and I flew to Maui and I was waiting on a plane to get back from Maui to get back to the main island, I made the mistake of asking when the plane was going to be there because it was running late and there weren't any boards or anything. And there's this kind of joke that it's on island time. So whenever it happens is when it happens. Is that what
Yeah.
happens in
Yeah.
Mauritius?
And there's a running joke that it's, on African time as well. Like African timing is a thing. So we are running on African time and on island time. So you can imagine how it works. But no, yeah. As much as I love Mauritius, it's difficult to get things done in that country. Um,
Yeah.
and that's, I guess, one positive within the UK. You've got an appointment, you make it, you get your thing at the end of the appointment, and life just goes on. Um, but yeah, and also in Mauritius, people are a lot more, I guess, because of that chilled, laid back
Mm,
vibe that's running through the island. People are a lot more calm and family
mhm.
oriented because they
Yeah.
prioritize, not, I wouldn't say they prioritize leisure as in they're lazy people, but they do, that's part of their life. Whereas here, it's like in London, I mean, you have to like time, you know,
Yes.
slot in the time for leisure,
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
okay, well, at this time, I'm going to spend time with my family because it doesn't come naturally. Whereas there, it's very common for even adults to live with their parents and grandparents,
Mm.
everyone either in that same house or in the same garden or at least the same neighborhood. So it's just
Yeah.
like, if my brother came in right now wanting something, that would be so normal. Whereas in England, on a meeting, you could just not have that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing someone before who was living in London. She had moved to London for work in one of those high flying jobs. And she went through a terrible depressive state. And she said she never felt lonely in her life, which always
Oh,
struck me as being ironic because London is a huge, bustling city with lots of people. So you
yeah.
automatically assume, oh, you'd be surrounded by people and you must be socializing all the time. But I think it's funny that in a really large city like London, you can still feel lonely.
Yeah.
Whereas in a smaller, more tight knit community, you probably never feel that way because there's someone that
Yeah.
you can always talk to and there's someone you've known for your entire life. So
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting contrast.
It's very multicultural London, which is a great thing
Mm,
about it. But with multiculturalism comes, people moving in and out a lot,
yeah,
which makes it difficult to create those like long life bonds that you can create in island communities.
yeah. Given where you want your life to end up, I'm imagining you're going to find Miss World fascinating, getting a chance to meet close to 100 women from 100 different countries. It's almost going to be a chance for you to do like a study or a dissertation with all these women coming from such different countries. That must be an exciting prospect for yourself.
So exciting. I'm so excited. I've been in communication with a couple of them already. And everyone just seems so lovely. And it's kind of
Mm,
like, and we share a lot of things in common already, I think, because to be a Miss World delegate in the first place, I think it just requires so much discipline and
yes.
motivation, and not just anybody can do it. So we already share that kind of mentality, which makes us, I think, like-minded. I met up with the Miss Trinidad and Tobago in London a few weeks
Hmm.
ago, and we were
Oh, wow.
just kind of comparing our lives in different countries, but very, very similar in our goals and in the way that we're able to juggle so many things at once. And I love that. I think before pageantry, I guess I underestimated what would entail. But
Mm,
I think it is just the general consensus, it seems, that all pageant girls have a lot of responsibilities and just are very strong-willed and motivated, and I love that, and I'm really excited to meet like-minded women. But I will
mm.
not be doing a dissertation on women. I'll try to leave that behind. I actually did my thesis on groups of Mauritian women in Mauritius, comparing them in their contribution in politics. So I don't intend on doing another one anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a part that I was happy to leave behind at university. I can tell you that. When you head over there, so you're going to be over in India for probably over a month. So it's
Yeah.
not going to be an inconsiderable amount of time. And you'll be spending a lot of time, obviously, with this amazing group of women. What are you most looking forward to? It's going to be a long time over there.
Yeah, I think I'm more looking forward to getting I've never been to India. So, like,
Okay.
even the fact that it's in India is exciting.
Hmm.
Not saying that it would have been less exciting in any other country, but India and Mauritius, they're so closely related in terms of culture and language. And a lot of Mauritians have been to India. So, as a Mauritian who hasn't been to India, it's like a thing. Um,
Right.
so I'm really excited to go there. I mean, I have Indian heritage as well, so it'll be nice to go and experience that firsthand. Um, Apart from that, I think just seeing what this Miss World thing is about. Like, you hear about it, and you can, as much as you hear about it and you watch it on
Mm,
YouTube. I think it's just unlike anything that anyone can explain to you. And I have spoken to previous Miss World delegates, but it's just like I can't imagine. I can't imagine it. Mauritius's pageant was good, but it was not at all to this scale. So I
of
don't think,
course. Yeah.
yeah, but like I've never been involved in anything of that. I don't know of that size, of that importance. So I'm just really looking forward to the experience more than anything.
Well, put it this way, I believe that when you touch down and land, you'll be escorted by security
I've
because otherwise
heard.
otherwise and people go, what's a security?" Because the Indian pageant fans are crazy and not no malice, but they will sometimes try and grab you to take a photo with you. And if you get lost in the mob, you'll be dragged off for hours and no one will ever be able to find you. So that's why you're going to have security. And I interviewed an Indian title holder who recently returned back to her home country. It took her 2 to 3 hours just to get out of the airport, not the customs part, but
Wow.
just to get through the crowd, everyone wanting to take a photo with her.
Wow.
So how have you prepared for that level of craziness?
I have not. I think that I'm really looking forward to it because I've heard about security and I've heard about chaperones, and that was so
Mm,
shocking to me. Of course,
yep.
coming, learning about it from scratch, you're just like, really? I'm never going to be able to leave the hotel like unaccompanied.
Oh yeah.
That's so crazy to me, but I'm just looking forward to it. I think I'm a very adaptable person, and I'm not worried that I'll be struggling to deal with any kind of, homesickness or different environments. I'm really looking forward to it. I love traveling, so I, come at me, It's one of
Well, I
those
think
ones.
also everyone will know who you are because all the pageant fans would have done their homework. So they'll know that you're Miss Mauritius. And you
Yeah.
probably, I don't know if you hear your name, but you'll certainly hear Mauritius, Mauritius, Mauritius,
You
and people
think
will want
I'm
photos.
sometimes don't. I mean, I do. I guess another reason I'm not preparing for that is because I know that I'm coming from Mauritius, which isn't a
Mm,
big and well-known country. So I'm expecting to the craziness, but I'm not expecting to be part of it. Maybe I'm mistaken, but yeah, I think that's also one challenge that it's a good thing, but it's also a challenge that I have to overcome.
yeah.
Um, Getting Mauritius out there and known and spoken about, even among pageant fans and
Yeah.
um, people who are looking forward to Miss World. I think Mauritius can sometimes go unnoticed because we're so small.
Well, I can absolutely understand that coming from Australia. I mean, Mauritius is probably even smaller by comparison,
Mm.
but I will tell you, in terms of big international pageants, the Miss World is probably the organization where you'd have the best chance of winning purely on your own merit. And I say that because I interviewed the current Miss Gibraltar, who you'll be meeting over there. By the way, it was 44 degrees the other day in Gibraltar, just saying. That's Celsius, not
No.
Fahrenheit. And I would say I gladly swap places with you, Faith, because it's freezing over here. But
Yeah.
Gibraltar actually won the Miss World pageant, I think, about 10 years ago. And their entire population, I think, is 30,000 people. And
Wow.
that, it's got the area is 2.6 square miles. So I think a lot of it, especially when it comes to the Miss World organization, is the Beauty with a Purpose project and knowing that you have a purpose that is bigger than yourself, specifically a humanitarian sort of advocacy for yourself. So, along those lines, when you're going over there, I mean, what are the causes? Forget going over there, but what are the causes that are closest to your heart? I mean, obviously you work in education. We talked about wanting to get into international relations. You mentioned conflict resolution, which is always fascinating to me because I don't see
Mm,
how big countries can never agree on anything because they always seem to be bickering for no good reason.
right,
But
but
what
it's
are
just
the
oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just saying
no,
it yeah, with conflict resolution, I think it's less about peace around the world and, having those ideals. It's more about how to come to certain agreements as neatly as possible, avoiding as
yeah.
much damage as possible, unfortunately. But yeah.
Well, I don't want to get into discussing,
No,
your
of course.
opinion on political situations
No
because in
worries.
pageantry we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm sure you'd have some fascinating opinions. But I do want to ask a more general question because obviously we do have the Ukraine and Russia conflict still going on. So, in terms of what you hope to do, is that the sort of situation that you'd be looking to deal with in your future career, helping countries such as that come to some sort of resolution?
Yes, exactly. So I probably wouldn't be an expert to work for Russia or Ukraine, but like where
Sure.
I've studied, I did African studies, Mauritius,
Mm,
my own country. I mean, it's not just concentrated within Africa; it's Africa and other countries as well.
mm.
But yeah, wherever you would have studied and become an expert, I guess, in their history and their relations with other countries. That is the kind of thing that you'd be dealing with. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned, and I think it's a good thing you brought up that you can't always bring peace to two countries. Sometimes it's just a question of getting it done in as least messy a way as possible. Um, when did you come to that realization? Because a lot of people have this, and it's a pageant stereotype, right? Well, peace, but I think I mean, working towards it, and you can see that it's a good ideal, but we as a species may be some ways away from that. But when did you come to the realization that sometimes that world peace ideal may be a little bit beyond our reach for now, anyway?
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't know if going into Miss World, I'm going in very authentic with the beliefs that I have. And I don't know if that's a good idea because I'm not the kind of person to say, I'm going to be promoting world peace because I don't know if that's necessarily realistic. But I would hope to be able to
Sure.
bring something to the table that would be a realistic and
Mm.
refreshing outlook. Correct me if I'm wrong. Advice welcome to anyone from anyone who thinks this is a bad way to go about it being a Miss World delegate. Um, but I guess when did I come to the realization? It's when when I've studied the course and studied events in history that have taken place before, and
Mm.
it's not always black and white. Unfortunately, it's not always this
I'd say
country
it's
is
usually not. I'd
yeah.
say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's usually not black and white.
Yeah,
They
so
both countries have a reason.
yeah, exactly. So then who has the power to make an
Exactly.
executive decision on one or two or multiple countries? So it's
Mm.
trying to get everyone's voices heard is not so easy. Um, and it's about being as fair as possible in the process. Because I also don't advocate for stepping in to a situation and saying, well, because I think that party A should be the winners, that means that
Mm.
party B should lose out because I just can't imagine anyone who would be able to have that power. Um,
Well, I think if there's anyone who thinks they should have that power, they're probably the last person you would want to have that
exactly,
power,
exactly.
is the
I'm
answer to that.
very yeah, and I mean, in African studies and transitional justice, you learn that it shouldn't be a top to bottom, like a bottom down approach. It should be a general conversation, which is something that we
Mm.
don't have. And I'll be the first to admit that this is not how international relations work. And we have, the UN or other parties or
Mm.
like even the EU deciding. But I am of the opinion that it should be like a general conversation to find solutions to that. But it depends, of course, like case by case.
So would you be, in terms of your career, would you be aiming at something like the UN? Would you be aiming at more an ambassadorship role or something like that? Like which, or are you open
Yeah.
to any and all at the moment?
I'm open to any and all at the moment. I mean, I would love the role that I would love to have would be conflict resolution specialist or analyst. So I
Mm,
just feel like conflict resolution, you just can't go wrong, right? So whether I'm working for any organization, the point is that I'm resolving or trying to avoid any conflict. So it's not something that you could work, in my opinion, and I would hope, maybe I'm being naive and I haven't entered the working world of that fully, but I would hope that you can't really, there's not much space to go wrong if you're coming in as a conflict resolution specialist. That's the hope.
what's your own personal attitude towards conflict? Because one of the things that you get often in personality tests, certainly in workplace personality tests,
Mm,
is how willing you are to sort of embrace conflict and not run away from it. And if you run away from conflict, it's not good because sometimes conflict is necessary to thresh ideas out, and it's not necessarily conflict.
yeah.
It's more two people, both passionate and trying to thrash something out. And sometimes things can get a bit heated. But I'm just curious, given the profession you want to go into, which is professional conflict resolution, in your personal life, does that mean you're really good at dealing with it?
I would say so. I'm very honest and I'm
Okay.
very diplomatic. Everyone's like, so even if I'm, and I think that's quite a British trait, actually. I was speaking to some Mauritian friends about that the other day, and I was saying how, like some people just always get heated in conversations, but I don't because that's not the way to deal about things. Not saying that I never get angry. Of course, I do, like to my family, probably daily, but like frustrated. But I'm quite diplomatic, and I think I'm a fair person, and I think I'm an honest person. So those qualities definitely help. Whether I can avoid conflict, I think sometimes it's necessary to voice out your opinions, as you said. Um, but I don't exactly go and look for conflict either. So if I
Yeah.
voice something out and the conflict
Yeah.
has come, I will deal with it. But I'm not gonna try to make an issue, even if I am angry or upset or disappointed by something someone's done. Um, I'm not a kicking and screaming kind of person. I'm more of a it's
Okay.
I'll tell you how I feel, and if you can take it, then take it, and if you can't, then I'll just walk away kind of person. But yeah, still
I
growing. I
mean,
think it's not.
heading into one of the biggest pageants in the world, it's probably a good thing that you don't go looking for conflict. I mean, otherwise, the next thing we're going to see you in the press for a reason that we don't want to see you in the press for. Miss Mauritius starts conflict with 99 other delegates. But
Yeah.
have you given any thought to, and I'm sure you have, and especially now that we have a date and a host country, how do you want to represent your country at Miss World? Like, and I asked, Faith, Miss Gibraltar, the same thing. Like, how can you sort of do justice to a country which is so multicultural? It's
Yeah.
so friendly, it's so warm, and you kind of want to represent that on a pageant stage. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, even thinking about representing my people on an
Mm,
international stage are people who have a very difficult history. Mauritius has not had the simplest, smoothest sailing journey to like freedom and the society that we live in today. So even thinking about going and representing these individuals is such an emotional idea for me.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, I have heritage of both. I have both Indian and East African heritage. So I'm what we call in Mauritius a Creole person, and a Creole means a mixed person. So of course I
Right.
don't represent every single person, but I think that I'm I represent like a good amount of people,
Yeah.
and definitely I'm in touch with a lot of like pretty much all the cultures that we have in Mauritius, and hope to advocate for them as well if I don't already represent them. Um, and it's a big responsibility. But for example,
Mm,
with my, even with things like my wardrobe or my talent selection or just my Beauty with a Purpose project, without giving too much away in terms of what I'm going to be wearing or what I'm going to be
of
doing.
course.
Yeah. um, but I think I'm at the heart of everything that I'm preparing for Miss World is like consideration for my country, my continent, and local craftsmanship, local grassroots, especially women
Hmm.
and young people. my Beauty with a Purpose is about Mauritian women. Um, and yeah, I just hope I probably won't be able to do them justice, but because it's just so much to show and
Yeah.
to advocate for. But I'll do my best.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that anyone can ask for. It's
Yeah.
difficult to represent an entire country as one person. But I was asking before, and I forgot to get an answer. What causes are closest to your heart? I mean, you mentioned your Beauty with a Purpose project, and when it comes to things you can advocate for in this day and age, there's almost an endless choice as to what you could be passionate about. And I think that's one of the beauties of pageantry is that everyone has a different cause that they attach themselves to.
Yeah.
But what causes are closest to your own heart?
So my cause has always been Mauritius and women in Mauritius. I did mention in my bio that I'm from a specific area of Mauritius, which is quite underprivileged, and I grew up there.
Mm.
And life for people in general, let alone women, is very difficult there. So as soon as, even without the Miss World platform, without the Miss Mauritius platform, that was always my goal to go back and work for them and work with them. Hence why I did the studies that I did, leading me to
Right.
the path that I'm on right now. So I think that's
Mhm.
why initially anyway, without knowing about Beauty with a Purpose, that was my cause. And I guess that's what sparked an interest in the Miss World 2019, who met me because I didn't know about the platform, but that
Yeah.
was always I always felt like I wanted to go back home to help out, to contribute what I could. Um, and so I'll be advocating for women from this area, single women, um, single mother women, sorry, unemployed women who are struggling to make ends meet. We have a huge food crisis, I guess, everywhere in the world, but in Mauritius as well, where we don't grow enough of our own crops and people
Right.
just can't afford basic food items. And then there's a lot of food insecurity, which I see, unfortunately, even in my own family back home. Um, just it's very rife, and it's kind of like the other side of the coin of my beautiful country with so many great things, but it's also some people are really struggling to buy basic food items. So what my Beauty with Purpose has done has been to empower those women to grow their own crops, which is something so simple, but it's something that I could do by myself because I wasn't going to
Mm.
be able to, suddenly build them a house, or I don't have the capacity. So what I could
Yeah.
do was to teach them to gain skills to at least be self-sustainable, whether that be in getting them the courses that they needed, getting them the equipment, the spaces that they needed. And we've managed to do that now for the women. So I think when I'll be going back, I'll be kind of changing the courses slightly to making them, I guess, kind of like entrepreneurial courses where they can now go on and sell that and make that become more fruitful.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I'm aiming to, or I have started already, to spread this kind of like self-sustainability awareness campaign in schools.
Mhm.
Um, because I think in Mauritius we have so much potential to grow our own crops, and we just don't. I think something like 70% of our food products, or maybe even more, come from other countries, and there's just no need for that because it makes it expensive, it makes it inaccessible. Um, so I'll be taking, and a lot of these women they've known me growing up as well, so
Right.
from the area. So I guess I'll be going to advocate for that and for my project. And also when I'm going back to Mauritius, I aim to have those same group of women who now have the skills acquired. Like I've paired them up with the Minister of Agriculture, and they've had really good training now, where they can now hopefully go around and teach other women and transfer their skills.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. That's kind of a great example of each one teach one. I'm surprised to hear that Mauritius has that food scarcity. I don't know Mauritius that well, but I would have thought would have been more than capable of growing its own crops. Is
It
that
is.
not
Yeah.
the case? Is the land being used for something else?
I don't know. I haven't looked into what the land is being used for, but like
Mm.
even speaking to my family about it, we're always saying, we have so much potential to grow in it. It's not so much of a food scarcity, but it's I guess, a food insecurity coming from We have a lot of cyclones as well. I guess that makes it really difficult for local farmers,
Sure.
and a lot of rainfall and droughts, and it's kind of up and down, especially with
Mm,
the effects of global warming nowadays. It's even worse than
yeah.
before. It makes that it's not that it's scarce, but I would say that it's insecure, and you're not sure when you're gonna get
Got it.
the next batch of
Right.
tomatoes, or whether you're gonna have to pay like insane amount for very basic food items because there's been a rainfall and we're not producing enough for the entire country. My food shopping in England costs probably a third of what it would cost in Mauritius. And
That's
if we
shocking.
compare the currency rates and the
Yeah.
salary, there's a huge difference there. So I
Yeah.
struggle to afford items in Mauritius. I struggle to, like salmon
Wow.
is a luxury that I can enjoy only here. I know salmon doesn't come from the ground, but this is just one example. I think like half cauliflower was like £5. The last I checked in a supermarket,
Wow.
and with £5 here, you can get probably three, four, five cauliflowers. Yeah,
I think that's, I mean, obviously, a lot of the world is dealing with a sort of a food poverty issue at the moment because of
yeah,
inflation all around the world. And there were terrible stories in the UK. I'm sure you heard of people not being able to afford their heating. So they were
yeah.
freezing to death simply because the price of gas and electricity had gone up so much. And you just think that in this day and age, we would have been, with the technological advances that we've made, that that wouldn't be an issue for us anymore. But I guess that's certainly one of the things that you can do as representing your country is bring awareness to issues such as this. But I think what I love even more than that is hearing that you're actually doing something about it, because I think that's much more impactful. Raising awareness is helpful, but it's only as helpful in as much as it results in action. And that sounds amazing what you've put into place. Do you have plans to? I mean, you already outlined plans to expand it. I mean, do you have an ultimate goal for this project?
The ultimate goal currently would be for the women who are part of the project already to get to a level where they're producing enough to be able to sell on to their communities at like lower rates than we would be able to buy in a supermarket. So
Sure.
that would be a win-win for not only them but also the local communities. As I mentioned, it's an underprivileged area. People don't have a lot of
Mm,
money. So that would be the ultimate goal, and also to pass it on to other women, because in Mauritius we have, stay-at-home women. Nothing wrong with that, as we do in other countries. But it's also, it would be nice to see those same people becoming empowered through being able to provide something to their communities that the community is struggling to get anyway.
yeah.
Um, and as I mentioned, I don't feel like I'm not changing the world, but it's a small contribution. It's what I can do. It's what I thought a lot long and hard about it, because I have also a background in education. I could have gone into that. I could have gone into so many different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, the basic thing that we're lacking is food. And I think be before addressing other social issues, like addressing the basics. And I've always wanted to work with women in Mauritius, especially this group of women, which I did my research on um,
Mm,
in my thesis anyway. So I'm already aware of the issues that they face every day, having lived there as well, but also having researched that specific group of women for my research. So yeah, it just kind of felt like it clicked into place. And it might, I mean, I'm not underselling myself by any means, but I'm saying like it might not be the most um, fascinating, or I don't, what's the word? The most impressive to like the world, because it is a small group of women in a small area that no one really knows about, doing something like food cultivation, crop cultivation. Um, but it's something that means a lot to me, and it's the thing that I feel like I would have done anyway without the Miss World platform, which just makes it really, I don't know, really meaningful for me and my purpose.
yeah. There was a book that I read recently. I don't know if you read it. It was put together by a bunch of Nobel laureates, so
Ooh,
some of the smartest people in the world.
yeah.
And the title of the book was very simply something along the lines of, now I've forgotten it, but the most impactful ways to save the planet, as in the best things that we could actually do to really save the planet, not just talk about it and make us look flashy. Because what I would say with
Yeah,
what you're doing, it's not in terms of like
yeah,
grandiosity, it's not in terms
I
about
think that's
flashy, but it's making a real difference. And one of the ones that really hit home was food insecurity. And it makes so much sense when you read a little bit about it, you think about it, you can't tackle global warming if you don't have food, water, and shelter.
mm,
I mean, those, especially if you're a single mother and you have children, you're not going to worry about, oh, what green car should I be driving? It's like, well, I need to feed my children,
yeah,
have running water or clean water, and have shelter. And if you don't have security in those three things, there's no way you can be empowered to worry about anything else. And I think sometimes people forget that, especially coming from the Western world, such as the UK, Australia, the US, and it's all about, oh, we should do this, we should do this. Well, what about people who can't feed themselves?
yeah,
Because your project, if someone is able to achieve food security, it has a massive flow on effect for them, the people they know, their children, their grandchildren, and you can create generational change. And I think that's extremely powerful. And I was reading a quote, I can't remember who, I think it might have been Gandhi. He said, if you can't do great things, do small things greatly. And I
mhm.
think that describes what you're doing really, really well, because I think that has a massive flow on effect. I mean, do you have a name for the project?
Yeah, it's called Nulla Terre, Nulla Force, which is a Creole name, and it translates to our roots, our power, because it's to highlight, I guess, the power that Mauritius holds to be able to
Mm,
do those things that we just don't exploit the land well enough. We're not really taught this ever, how to
mm,
grow our own food. In schools we're not taught it. In society, it's not. We don't put emphasis on it. So how would we expect people in
yeah.
Mauritius needing it to know how to do that? And it's kind of like yeah, being empowered by what you already have instead of going to look elsewhere for something that you could have in your
Yeah.
own land.
Well, it certainly sounds like an amazing project, and it sounds like one to me that could really make a very tangible difference. And I think that says a lot, because there's a lot of people who talk a good game, but then you look at what's actually happening, it's not much. But
No, it's
you
kind of,
sound
I
like,
mean, the reason I say it's not as impressive, even though I know in my heart what the work is
of
doing, and
course,
of
yeah,
course, but the reason I say that is because, if you look at other charity projects or just different projects around, and I
mm,
myself have been intimidated, when you go on the Beauty with a Purpose project videos and things like that,
of course, yeah,
and you have, other delegates building and constructing and changing. And I think that's so amazing.
mm,
I don't have the power to do that, but what I do have the power to do is something small but meaningful. This is why I say it's meaningful to me, and
yeah.
also when you're able to know the stories behind it.
I think it's going to be meaningful, Lisa, to the people who have a full stomach because
Yeah,
of what you do. And I think honestly, as much as might be cliche, if you change one person's life, that should be enough. And I know that the Beauty with a Purpose project, there are some. I mean, there's some charities out there that are doing amazing work, but I don't think comparison is a winning game. I think each
yeah,
each one of us should do whatever we can from wherever we are with what resources we have,
yeah,
and it certainly sounds like you're doing that. So that sounds really, really, I'm not going to say exciting is the right word, but certainly impactful in a very meaningful way. Because I think most people listening to this hopefully won't know what food insecurity is like, where you're really not knowing whether you can eat tonight, or sometimes you have to make a choice. Not in Mauritius, probably with heating, but some people have to make a choice between, can I turn the electricity on and have heat, or are we going to eat? Like, which one are we going to do? And I think if you're living with that sort of uncertainty, it's terrible, and I think it's unnecessary. Hopefully, it's unnecessary moving forwards.
yeah.
But yeah, best of
Thank
luck.
you very much for your kind words
That
for my
sounds
project. I appreciate it.
absolutely amazing. I won't be able to pronounce the words. I did have a look at it, and even with my terrible French, it doesn't
Why? Go
quite
ahead.
look French. I'm not gonna say it doesn't look French, but it
It's
doesn't
not
look like the
French, it's
French I
Creole.
studied.
Yeah, it's Creole.
Okay, because I was
But it's
looking at it
similar to
going,
French. So it's French words. La terre is la terre, but in Creole it's one word. And same with la force, strength. So it's
"Oh,
one word in
okay.
Creole.
Nous
Yeah.
la terre, nous la froid." Okay.
Why? there you go. You did it really
Now
well.
I'm getting it because it was one word and I thought it was saying now later. And I was like, I was so confused. New latte. Okay, now,
I need to
now,
specify this. Now later is not a good is not a good name for a project.
but now it makes perfect sense. And that's a really good name. All right. Well, Lisa, we've been on for a while. So just before we go to the final 10 questions to wrap up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for supporting you along your journey?
Oh, I would. I would love to. It's an unexpected question, but I would love to give a shout out firstly to my family. I've got my dad, my mum, and my brother really, really supporting me. I mean, we had a meeting 2 days ago with my entire family. Like, how are we going to do this? We have so much to do. We have so much to buy and things like that. So it's really nice, not only financially supporting me, but like my brother helped me a lot with my social media. My mum is kind of my manager. And then I have some friends the other day, they were offering to help. They know how difficult it is to prepare for a pageant. So I'd like to shout out them as well. Well, I don't know if I should say names, I guess. Names?
You can if you want to. If they want to
Oh,
remain anonymous, that's okay as well.
so my brother's called Steven. So shout out to him. My mom, my dad, my friend Alicia, my friend Amo, who was offering to help me the other day, my friend Alice, who's been helping out with social media here and there when I haven't been able to, and just everyone who's supported me in my journey, in my project. I have a lot of local volunteers as well in Mauritius helping with my project. So I'm really grateful for them.
Perfect. Well, let's wrap up with we've spoken about some heavy issues. We'll go into the
Mhm.
final 10, have a bit of fun with them. So,
Okay.
10 random questions. Here we go. Number one, what is your favorite word?
Ooh. Number one, oh, sorry, my favorite word. I don't know why I'm saying number one. My favorite word is my favorite word. I don't really have a favorite word, but I remember my favorite word as a child, so I'll say that one. It's anti-disestablishmentarianism because that was the longest word that I
The
knew.
longest word. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
But that's,
I think
I'm
it's
glad
not
to
the
know that.
longest word. It's not the longest word though, but it's the longest one that I knew when I was like at the age of wanting to know my longest word.
We had that growing up in school over here in Australia. Isn't it funny how some things transcend boundaries, such as what's the longest word you know as a kid? The other one I've heard, I don't think this is as long, but a popular one is discombobulated. A lot
Oh,
of
okay,
people like that one too, just because why?
okay.
Because it's long. So,
I
oh, it's
don't
okay.
you don't think of your favorite word every day, so I know my favorite word, that was it, what as a child.
Fair enough. Well, number two, what's your least favorite word?
I guess it's 2 words. I can't. Or 3 words, I don't know. I don't like those words. I don't really use them, and it frustrates me. Maybe that's me being an impatient person that I still need to work on, but I don't I don't I could personally never give you that answer. So when people give me that answer, it's like, "What do you mean?" Find a way.
You'd actually, I mean, I know I asked you about what makes a good teacher. I will say, I think you would make an excellent coach. I coach a lot of tennis, and one of the things I always said was, "Don't tell me you can't," because I don't hear that. So you can tell me I can't do it yet, and
Yeah,
also, I don't know. Okay, but I will find out.
yeah.
I never accepted the I can't and I don't know. It's like, no, you're actually
So
lying. You
limiting.
do
It's not
know.
Yeah, but it's not like I'm angry at the person using it. It's just like, "You're so limiting. Of course you can." What do you mean? What do you mean you can't?
Oh, just wait till you hear it like 50 times in a row from a bunch of stroppy teenagers. Believe me, you'll get angry because I was teaching teenagers and they eventually learned not to say that to me. They would catch themselves saying it and then correct themselves. It's
Oh,
like I took
it's a
that
good
as a
way of
win for myself.
yeah, no, it's a good way to teach. It's a coach.
Uh Number 3 in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
What gets me the most excited is seeing people that I love. So I travel a lot and I'm not always with my family or with my friends. I'm just always doing my own thing somewhere in the world. So to know that I'm seeing friends or family and just people in general makes me really happy.
Number 4, what turns you off?
In people or in general?
Just in general.
Bad mood and bad vibes.
Okay.
I don't like if somewhere I enter and it's got bad vibes, I probably won't stay very long. If I speak to has a bad mood, I probably won't be chatting for very long. I'm a very positive person.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
Number 5, what sound or noise do you love?
Mm, sound or noise. Music, does that count? I play the piano, so I like hearing other people play
Ooh,
the piano. Because I'm not very good anymore. So it makes me really excited when other people are good. I feel like they're carrying my baton for me.
classical piano? Jazz
Yeah,
piano?
I studied classical and I had my exams in classical piano.
How far did you go?
Not very far, because then like afterwards I started liking jazz. So got up to grade 5 when I was small,
Yeah.
and then I went more into jazz, and then had my teenager phase where I just wanted to be in a band, so I played like piano in the band kind of phase. So it just yeah, I haven't stuck to one, I guess, section or genre for a long time.
That's not bad. I mean, I played the violin from the age of 2, and,
2?
yeah,
You
yeah,
hold a
2.
violin at 2 years old?
Well, it started off as a shoebox, long story, but I
Oh,
started at
wow.
2 because I showed the ability to stay very still as a 2-year-old.
Oh.
And then, when I got to being a teenager, I'm like, "Violin's so not cool, I wanna join a band." Problem is, there are no bands with violins. I mean, back then, Lindsey Stirling and all that wasn't a thing, so I I didn't there's no option forward with violin, so I think you
Also, that would have
lucked
been
out with
such an
piano.
option forward. It's an amazing idea to put a violin in a band. I don't know if you know Mumford& and Sons, they have, like, a banjo, they have a whole 40 men group sometimes in the back just
Oh,
playing
wow.
all sorts of musical instruments.
No, I've started trying to learn country music. That was my only
Okay.
way forwards, I thought. So I started learning "The Devil Went Down to Georgia" on the violin.
Nice. How far are
Had
you getting
some
that? Is it going
had
well?
well, compared to, when you've played Mendelssohn and Mozart, "Devil Went Down to Georgia" is not as difficult. I was looking at bluegrass tutorials on YouTube, and they're saying, "Oh, this is really difficult. This is really difficult." I'm like, "What do you just do it? Like, it's so much easier compared to the
Oh,
class." So
I
in
feel
that way, it's good,
seen.
but it's
I was
very
literally the
different.
same.
It's
Yeah.
very different. I don't know how different jazz piano is to piano because I think the technique would be quite similar, but classical violin and fiddle, oh,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
completely different.
I don't need that's not my world at all. I wouldn't
Fair enough. Well, that was your favorite sound. So number 6, what sound or noise do you hate?
snoring because I come from a family of snorers, and there's nothing I hate more than at night when you start to hear the snoring creeping in. It just makes puts me in such a bad mood. It could not even be that bad, but like because I just associate it to such a negative feeling, I just don't like it. But and then sometimes I'm told I can snore sometimes if I'm very tired, and I just have like so much self-hatred if I've ever done it, and people tell me like you need to do
My
better
fa
in your sleep. Just know not to snore.
my favorite one is when you wake yourself up with your snoring. I don't
Okay.
snore, but I've seen some people, they snore so loudly, they snore and they wake themselves up. It's
Yeah, well,
quite
my
funny to
dad,
watch.
yeah. I think it's a Mauritian thing because I don't know many people in this country that snore, but, like, in Mauritius, if you did a survey at night, like, and just went around houses, it would just be a snoring sound.
You know that you can get these sleep apps on your phone that will monitor you whilst you sleep and tell you what sounds you make during the night.
I've never tried that out. I probably should get it for my dad first and foremost, and then try it out for me.
Uh,
You tried it?
uh, no, one of my friends did. I won't name names, but it also can recognize sounds and it can recognize farts. Let's
Okay.
just leave it. It knows the difference between
Oh,
snores
wow.
and farts, and it will tell you at what time you did what. So I've decided I won't be pursuing that app at this time. I don't need to know. Number 7, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Mm, I'd love to read people's minds. It would solve so many of my problems or anyone's problems really because I'm a very honest person, so you wouldn't need to read my mind. Like if I think something I'll tell you, but a lot of people are not that way. So I just sometimes when I'm conversing with people or just interacting with anyone, I just wish that I could know because or
Hmm.
I wish either they were as honest or like as open as I was, which is so hard to expect from everyone, or that I could just know what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 8, what job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Attempt. I have two. I know the answers to this question. So the first would be personal trainer. I've never been a personal trainer in my life. I've never been had studied to be a personal trainer, but I just would love, because I'm quite meticulous in my life, and I think it's, I guess you can maybe tell that on the lives of other people, I'm very pushy, but in a good and a bad way sometimes. So I motivate others to be the best versions of themselves. So I'd love to be a personal trainer for that reason, because it gives you like a green card to be like, no, do it again, do another lap. But then it's like for their own good. So it's not, you're not being mean, you're just helping them. And, I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what all of us who have been coaches always say to ourselves. We're not being mean, it's for your own good.
Yeah. Like I would never say something to be mean, but it's just, I found myself in the lives of the people that I love, kind of being that person to push them to apply to the job, or to do something new. So I think I'd really enjoy being a personal trainer because of that. And also I love going to the gym, so it'd be an excuse to be at the gym like all the time. Um, and the second one, this is a really weird one, like a beauty esthetician, because I when I get like my nails done or waxes or whatever, it's so satisfying when they're like make uh, an ugly nail nice, or wax hair off, or things like that. I just love. I'm also a very tidy person, so I think I'd really like that job. Maybe it stems from like makeover games when you're little, like when you make over girls on computer games or
I
something. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Things like that.
Well, I've never had a makeover. I mean, there are some people who argue that I need one, but I can understand what you're saying, even if I haven't been there quite myself. I haven't had experience with waxing, and I don't want one. But
Yeah.
I can certainly understand it. Those are two very opposing, I think, dream careers. One is
And
personal
nothing
trainer, and one
related
is
to what I currently do, but I always say, like, if I could redo multiple lives, I would have one life as a personal trainer, one life as a beauty esthetician, and just, yeah, do loads of things.
okay. Um, well, number 9 is what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
This is going to be so controversial, but maybe a teacher.
Because of your impatience?
Yeah, even though like what I do in itself is kind of, I teach, but I
Yeah.
don't consider it to be teaching. But I couldn't teach in a school,
Yeah.
following a set, like a syllabus, and to loads of different students.
Mm,
Um, I prefer to leave that to somebody else. I've been a
yeah.
tutor, I can do that, but I don't know. I think it's from a young age. I've always known that I wouldn't be able to be a teacher, because I used to watch teachers in class and be like, oh, I feel really sorry for you trying to do this really difficult job.
Yeah. I've tried to study to become a teacher twice, and
Okay.
that should tell you everything you need to know. It just it's a bad idea. The funny thing is I love education and I love helping people. I love
Yeah,
coaching people, but the idea of teaching to me, it's not so much education. It's almost more behavioral control and enforcement of rules
absolutely.
and regulations, which for
Yeah,
me is just so antithetical to who I am. So I can completely understand. But yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Final question.
yeah.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, well, I do believe that heaven exists. Crossed fingers. And I would like to hear God say, I don't know, that's, oh, I guess I've been expecting you, but like, something like you've made it just in, like you've just about made it or something, like I've just some approval and reassurance that I deserve to be there. Don't know. Sorry,
I
that
have
was a
heard
bad
from
answer, but I've never thought about that before. I'll go ahead and brush up on that in case I'm asked that in Miss World.
I have had some people say that what they want to hear is that, you've come to the right place. You don't have to go to the other place that's down there. And I think
Oh, yeah.
that's quite a fair response as well. Like,
Yeah.
you can come in, you've come to the right place.
Yeah,
Um,
reassuring.
anyway, Lisa, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been really fun. It's nice to speak about pageantry. It's not an everyday conversation that you have, so it's nice to
No.
break out of that and speak about it. Yeah.
Well, it's probably not an everyday conversation for you, but given what I do, it is an everyday conversation for me.
Oh,
So
of
we're
course.
probably at
But for
opposite
me, it's
poles.
not
I
an
spend
everyday
all
one.
my time talking about pageantry, and then my
You
friends
must
in
have
my
so
real
much
life have.
knowledge. You must have so much knowledge. You'd be the perfect coach for a pageant, like a
I
Miss World
I
or Miss
did
whatever. Yeah.
I did have a 5-hour coaching session the other night. That's when I found out that I probably have ADHD, so that was good
Oh,
to find
right.
out. And then I have another coaching session coming up. But as I
Oh,
said, I love
wow.
helping people, but
Amazing.
teaching, no. And for
Yeah,
some
yeah.
reason, they're very different in my mind.
And I really
But
relate on that point as well.
yeah. Anyway, look, I'll keep you on the line for just a second whilst I hang up with the audience. But thanks to everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open. So if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there and see you in the next video.